Trevor's unavailable right now, and rather than sit around waiting for him to return, I'm heading out on my own for a series of shorter conversations with authors, creators, and other interesting people. Think of it as a typical no win scenario episode, just with fewer arguments, less supervision, and no Trevor to stop me. Welcome to No Win Scenario Presents Dawn's Away Mission. And don't worry, Trevor will be back soon.
I haven't listened to anything you've said in the last 20 seconds.
Damn it, Trevor. We had a shtick.
Line.
Two friends who hate each other,
Rude.
talking science fiction,
It has become this cultural phenomenon.
along with some special guests.
I appreciate what Star Trek did to me.
I would love to have this book get banned.
That wasn't acting. That was real.
Do you know what our YouTube channel is?
Absolutely not. No win scenario.
With Trevor and Dawn.
Okay, we're not doing that.
Boom.
All right, joining us today is Liam Begley. He's a Vancouver film industry crew member and lifelong science fiction fan whose debut novel, Broken Interstellar, reimagines space opera from the perspective of the workers who keep interstellar commerce moving. Instead of soldiers, astronauts, or imperial leaders, Liam's characters are technicians, freelancers, and members of galaxy-spanning labor unions. The story follows Temper, a stranded cargo ship technician trying to reclaim his skills, his professional identity, and his place in a galaxy filled with alien cultures, extremist governments, and planet-consuming predators. Liam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Really happy to be here.
And when I say great, and I say us, Trevor's nowhere to be found. It's okay. So I'll dig him up, and I apologize, and you're welcome for him not being here. So before we talk about your career and your book, in our emails back and forth behind the scenes, you made the case to me that Gabriel Bell, for those of you who don't know, from a character in Deep Space Nine, one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine when they go back in time, you said that Gabriel Bell may have done more to create the Federation than Zefram Cochrane. So make your argument to me. What did you mean by that?
So one of the things that I think is really interesting about past tense is Sisko is wandering around with Julian Bashir, and Bashir is sort of the ideal Star Trek Federation citizen. He's technologically advanced. He's utterly interested in other cultures. He doesn't have a dominating bone in his body. Like, all he wants to do is do medicine, do science, and see the galaxy. And that's like a wonderful thing to be. But Sisko is like somebody who's been sitting there on the edge of the Federation. He's watched it almost get destroyed by the Borg. He's had serious losses. He lost his wife, all that kind of thing. He's got a real sense of like, no, this came at a cost. This is
Right.
difficult.
There's a price here.
Yeah. So Bashir represents kind of like the technocratic sort of view of the world that I think a lot of Star Trek ends up having a little bit. Like, if we get the right technology and the right people involved, it'll be taken care of. Replicators will solve labor. The technology necessary to extend life will solve disability and all this kind of thing. But that's not really true. And I think Gabriel Bell in the Bell riots begins to plant the seeds for the egalitarian politics and the egalitarian culture of the Federation, which ends up making it like everybody's got replicators. The Cardassians have replicators. The Dominion have replicators. The Romulans have replicators. The Klingons have barrels of blood wine, but presumably there's a replicator in the back somewhere. And they're all dominating and imperial as hell. Like, they're all running around the galaxy trying to take it over. The Federation's like impetus of like sharing egalitarianism is explicitly a direct result of people like Gabriel Bell, the political consciousness that is formed in the Federation as human society is collapsing. And that's something that is only visited every once in a while in the series. But like, the thing to remember is humans are such a big, important part of Starfleet and the Federation because we tried to kill ourselves. The eugenics war almost wiped us out. World War III almost wiped us out. But that political consciousness that people like Bell push forward in the years and decades preceding the war is, I think, what allowed a more Federation-ready society to form once they had warp drive for Zefram Cochrane. Like, I think you still need I think for every great social change, you need to have the technological change. Of course, the base has to change. Something has to change on a physical level. Maybe it's an ice age restricting the amount of food. Maybe it's a plague that rapidly changes the population, as happened in Europe during Black Plague. Or maybe it's the development of a new technology which radically changes how we farm or how we manufacture. But if it's not combined with some sort of sense of change of society, with a sense of looking at it differently, it's just going to fall back on previous structures. I mean, the Industrial Revolution came out of the enclosure area, pardon me, the enclosement movement, the fact when they were fencing off common grazing grounds. And then you had aristocrats just became switched over from being landowners to being factory investors. Like you still had this burgeoning middle class that formed with different sort of political ideas and different political systems. But it began with something that looked very similar to what we had before, because there hadn't been a shift in the way people thought about the economy before the economy changed radically. So what I'm saying is Gabriel Bell starts planting the seeds for a new way of dealing with humanity, an explicit demonstration that the economics that we've been running up till now, and now in real life right now, are not, are not working. The entire society crashes during World War III. And then when they get there, pick themselves up off the ground, Jeffrem comes in at the very, very end and opens the door to a new way, a new space, a new geographical space of living, and literally being able to enter into colonizing other planets. But we're not exporting the Imperium. We're not exporting the eugenics war. We're not exporting World War III. We're exporting Gabriel Bell. And I think that
Mm.
is why it's so important, and why I really respect the choice in that episode to make it so that Cisco's the only one who seems to know anything about this. Like Dax kind of does, but she's not really from Earth. It's just, oh, this is a depressing part of history. Ugh, you guys were so sad. Yeah.
So okay, so I got an external line of thinking and then a personal one. So we're deep in the nerdum of Deep Space Nine, which is the superior track, which I love.
Yeah.
But question number one is, so, and this may be a layup, but like, so what is the parallels to today? Because you talked about the past in the real world. And number two, like, why you come and talk about this? Well, what's your perspective and where does that come from?
So the parallels with right now are we are entering a point where we have an enormous amount of surplus workforce. Homelessness and the housing crisis is taking off across Canada. Vancouver, where I live, we hit the housing crisis about 20 years ago, and then it just got worse. Average rents have more than doubled in the last 10 years. Average wages have gone up like 10%, I think. Just so we and every other major metropolis are having a growing homelessness problem. And when I talk to people about this, particularly people who maybe just bought a $1 million condo and are finding that it's not worth anything because there's people asleep outside, and that's depressing. The conversation very rapidly goes to, well, what we should take care of these people. We should put them someplace where they're safe. We should put them in a sanctuary, some kind of camp, maybe. And then
There you go, Deep Space Nine.
Deep
Yeah,
Space Nine, yeah.
yeah.
The reality of the situation is that like we're always, because of the way we structured our economy, there's always going to be people who are not going to be needed, and they're always going to end up being in some way liquidated. Decades and centuries past, maybe that meant paupers prisons, maybe that meant work camps, and maybe that meant very, very unpleasant work, and maybe that meant just being the town drunk and everyone just sort of put up with you. But fundamentally, we don't need everybody, and we know that. And because of the way we're moving, our goal technologically has been to reduce the amount of labor we need, which is really just a nice way of saying reducing the number of people we need. I mean, when they talk about AI in film, I mean, we could talk all day about like quality, and I have opinions about the quality of AI productions, but fundamentally, AI is very expensive. I am quite cheap, comparatively speaking, but they are absolutely convinced they're going to be able to replace all of us with AI, and they're willing to take the hit now for the possibility of a labor-free future. And when that
Outgoing.
happens,
Yeah.
they're not going to send me to the old film guys home. They're going to it's going to be thanks for the 15 years, man. See you later.
Yeah. Right. So actually, that's a good segue. So talk about like your career, because that's obviously where the lens of what you're talking about comes
Mhm.
from. So you're in the film business.
Yeah. I have been in the film business for, at this point, I think 12 or 13 years. I spent, so I kind of fell into it. At the time, I had been working as a newswire editor, and I was very, very bored. And so I started helping out some friends of mine on the weekend, who had a little like short film collected thing, very, very small. But we did a couple of films. I found out that not only do I enjoy it, I actually have quite a good head for the logistical side of it. The creative aspect of film is very inspiring to me. I love listening to my colleagues discuss how they'll get their shots or what this particular lighting effect or this particular performance might mean and how an actor will layer a performance and then we'll layer a lighting effect on top and then the art department will build a whole world around it. I'm in awe of it all the time. My particular interest, though, is so when is this stuff getting delivered and then picked up? Okay, the traffic's really bad at that point, so maybe can we do it the next day? And also, can we get a deal on that so that we can afford more stuff down the line? Wait, it's also a huge, huge logistical undertaking. You've got hundreds of people who all have to come in and go and do their job with very close to the precision of a clock. And most of these people are not aware they're working that precisely at the best of times because we also have that really cool attitude that like being we're very professional. I'm not gonna say we're not, but this is still the circus. You don't come here because you want to be like suit and tie, man. You come here because you want to be a little weird. And that's the other thing that I really have always loved about this business is that this is the first place that I came to that like I really felt like I could be myself at work. I know other people who can be themselves at work. Sometimes they're a little annoying. Sometimes I'm a little annoying, but it's a community and a place where all that really matters is, are you able to do the job? Are you able to contribute to the crew? That is what is valued here. The appearance of professionalism, the a vibe, sort of identity is less important. I've never had somebody look at me and say like, man, can you pull it together? You're acting like a crewman. Well, you got to act like a crewman. But, and I really felt very welcomed by that. It was one of my favorite parts of it. And then, the rest of it's just been fun little adventures, a lot of boring days, a lot of days where I got to do some neat stuff. I hunted down the only crop duster in BC. That was a very odd day, but, but yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
good business.
so it's an interesting business, but, here in the States too, like, it's really slow, it's slowing down, and people are
Mm,
really terrified about what comes next for a variety of reasons. For here, it's the corporate, coming together, but, and then it's AI and technology.
yeah.
So do you feel that that technology kind of, you know, lurking in the shadows behind your side of
I
things?
it's a little different up here because we always know that they're shooting up here because, well, we're very affordable and we provide a sort of inbuilt thing. Like you hand us off the script, we put it together for you, we hand you off the raw footage, you edit it in LA, and then we've got a good relationship. So AI would have to get very cheap to replace us completely. However, what we do see a lot of is a slowdown in general, partially because of I mean, it's just harder to borrow money now, and filmmaking is all upfront. The other side of it, though, is that when when they are looking to replace more and more of us with American, with foreign imports, which this gets into a really complicated sort of thing. So when I started, above the line was all American and below the line was all Canadian. The production manager and below was all Canadian. Now your production designer, your costume designer, who really should be above the line, will come in because they're going to define the look and feel. But it's this kind of creeping nature of how much how much control of the show you want to hand off to your contractors who are just going to make it. And I think that is what we're worrying about now, but I think that's the same instinct that is causing people in LA on your side of things to be predated on as well, because fundamentally the producer's goal is to eventually have, or the companies or the corporations, the studios goal, however you want to make the bad guy in this particular sentence, is to have an Excel document of market research data and then hit a button and a movie pops out the other side of it. Like they don't want you, they don't want me, they don't want
Yeah,
Canada, they don't want LA, they don't want anybody. So
right.
in a lot of ways, like we're gonna get cut before they even have the AI technology because they'll use AI as a threat to lower your wages. And then once your wages are low enough, they'll say like, okay, well, we don't have to bother with the Canadians anymore. And they'll be able to stay in LA. And the
Those Canadians with those forest fires that
this
are making it
forest.
hard to breathe on the East Coast. I will point out it's been a little raw outside, a
Oh
little yellow,
God.
a little hard to breathe.
Our prime minister keeps doing these interviews and say, right, we're investing in oil and gas across Canada. It's like, half of Canada's on fire, man. Maybe
Fire.
read the
Yeah, let's get
room. I don't
some
know.
water.
Just let's deal with one problem first, and then maybe in winter we can announce a new pipeline that we shouldn't build. Yeah.
So how do you go from your role in the film industry to wanting to write a sci-fi book? And in particular, the way that you wrote the book. You didn't want the sort of the trope of the military
Mhm.
sci-fi complex, industrial complex, or whatever it is in there, and you wanted it really from the laborer's perspective. So I think there's a clear connection there. But why don't you talk about where that came from?
Well, a lot of it started out with just I knew I wanted to contribute to the canon. I've loved science fiction my whole life. It's a conversation I wanted to have a part of. It's a conversation I wanted to be able to contribute in. I want to be able to point to somebody who's like, well, this is my take on this. And I also knew that just personally, I tend to get a little bored in military sci-fi. I love old war stories as much as the next person. I love history as much as the next person, but it's depressing to think of history as nothing but a succession of battles and generals and kings. And when we make science fiction, we're usually drawing from history to extend further. And my personal interest has always been in who are the people that we're just not talking about. In my own country, we talk a lot about the explorers who went through Canada, the diplomats, and the soldiers who either conquered or negotiated for territory as they went through. We talk a little bit about the coureurs de bois, the runners of the forest, the first French fur traders who came in and essentially just disappeared off into the woods. Sometimes they lived with local people, sometimes they didn't, sometimes they can't, sometimes they came back to France, sometimes they just left. And you found some blue-eyed Cree a few generations later, and they just got adopted and was fine. So like, there's in our own country, there's always this sort of hinted at history about these people who kind of helped the colonization and the industrial process move forward. And I found that very interesting, but there's not really much to say about them because it doesn't fit into a pattern of history that's, kings, soldiers, then we conquered this, we signed this treaty. So I knew I wanted to talk more about that kind of thing. The second thing is, it's always bothered me that we're going to have a king of space or we're going to have a president of space. Like, democracy is very complicated and very hard to do in even very small areas. So,
Let alone
let alone
galactic scale.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, what does that even look like? And I thought,
Interesting.
yeah, and I thought like, well, okay, a lot of this is going to come down to communication. What is the common problem that people are going to have? Well, when you meet an alien species or you meet somebody who's been separated from the rest of humanity for so long, how are you going to feel about how are you going to communicate? Well, you need a
Interact. Yeah.
common problem, not just a desire to communicate, but what is it we're dealing with? Well, okay, we're all in space. So right off the bat, we're all dealing with the problem of being killed by radiation. We're all dealing with the problem of not having enough food, not having enough water. We're dealing with survival. And that starts to sound a lot more like how you organize people for a union than it does for how you talk someone into joining a country. When you go into a workspace as like a union organizer, try to talk people into joining, you go in and say, like, well, what's going wrong around here? What would you like that you're not getting? What you agitate. You get people to start thinking about well, yeah, it's not fair that I don't get paid overtime. It's not fair that I have to come in on weekends sometimes. It's not fair that I'm expected to keep my phone on when I'm not being paid and I'm not at work. And just start getting people to think about the problems that they're facing. And so it started to make, and then with my film experience and with having people do a very complicated job, sometimes not being able to communicate very well. I don't know if you've talked to a Teamster recently or a grip.
As a recent producer on a film, so
Yeah.
I got to be very careful what I'm going to say here.
I love them so much. After one of the, I think it was after the COVID shutdown, I was clearing out a warehouse and hadn't worked for about 6 months. Dude pulls up in a big truck, pops up, puts his cowboy hat on. I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he tells me his name. I'm like, "I missed you guys. I missed you guys so much. Let's load a truck. Let's do this." I love them, but yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Is that that's actually a really good example. Him and I probably aren't going to, or maybe won't be have a very in-depth conversation, but we both want to work, and we're both excited to work, and we both know how to load a truck. So there's all right away this really good way to communicate. And so it started to make me think that if work is what's universal, not a desire for domination, not a desire to be dominated, not a need for a religious or ideological formation, but just how do I survive out here? Then it starts to be, then a labor union seems to be something that's a lot easier to export and a lot more flexible in its structure from planet to planet and society to society.
So if that's sort of the backdrop of Broken Interstellar, like, so what's the main story? Like, to take us through,
Yeah. So
you know,
the
the short
primary the
pitch.
primary story is it's essentially an odyssey of Temper being horribly lost. Temper is a cargo ship technician. He's also specifically a sleepless class. Most of the rest of the crew go into cryogenic sleep. He is on the extended night shift of actually staying awake for the whole 10-year
30.
sublight speed
Wow.
journey. To keep him from going absolutely bonkers, they provided him with cybernetic implants that allow him to sort of selectively erase his memory. So if he goes through a particularly boring day where it's exactly the same as every day before, as he falls asleep, it just disappears. And the next day he wakes up. He might only really experience a few days, a few months of the whole journey. And further to that, as soon as he walks off that ship, it all just flows away. I mean, I'm sure you've had the experience of driving away from set on the last day and being like, this is the most stressful thing I don't remember anything that happened anymore. It's just gone. It's all contextual.
It's most days, regardless if it's on set or not.
So when we're talking, when he wakes up completely like next to a trash starship with all of his memories scrambled and no ability to reactivate his implants, he is, as far as he can tell, completely alone. And all he can really remember is that his job is to keep the crew alive, and he has no idea where they are. So yeah. So, and his only real talents and skills at this point are his own sense of solidarity. He is deeply motivated to find his crew. So he begins wandering through and discovers a small outpost on the planet he's on, discovers some people there, continues to hunt for his crew, continues to escape. This whole thing is from the backdrop of the particular planet he's on is being invaded without his knowledge. He is walking through a desert, following vapor trails, assuming them to be crashed like escape pods crashing from his ship that he assumes is breaking up in orbit somehow. Somewhere up there, and instead finds a giant shard of ice slowly melting in the desert, and remembers that there is one species that travels from system to system in giant comets, frozen until they get thawed by the sun, at which point they crash into planets and consume all life on the biosphere.
Oh.
And it is considered by some people to be an invading army. It's considered by some species to just be essentially the equivalent of a virus. It is a hyper predator, and he is now not only lost, not only can't remember what he's doing, but also is on a planet that is about to be completely consumed. So the first section of the book is him making his escape. The second section is him trying to recover his memories and his crew. And the third section is him just trying to start his life over again as he goes through it. There's basically, Temper finds himself thrown out of the structures and context that have allowed him to continue and survive this entire time. And as a result of that, he has to start looking at what it really means to be a member of this union, what it means to be keeping interstellar trade going. One of the characters that he meets and has a fairly long relationship with is a human who's been on Earth, and because of time dilation and relativistic time effects, is effectively from a few thousand years in Temper's future. And so he's talking to somebody who considers Temper and the rest of the Union to be sort of these characters of history, and is actually not that fond of them since they left Earth behind while it was an ecological collapse, and kind of left everyone else to just sort out the problems while they had fun trading stuff with aliens and seeing all the sights of the galaxy. So there's an aspect of sort of a man who has never really thought that deeply, who actually has brain implants that keep him from thinking too deeply about his job, finally being forced to sit down and think about both the economic and the social context by which he operates.
Are you about to tell me, is there anything that the industry has implanted in you to make you forget? Is there some?
Well, there's the ILT, which, but it's been It's all, I did it all to myself. That's that's the final reality. I complain all the time about this business, about this people, but I do love it. I do love doing it,
Yeah.
and I don't want to
It's
give
hard to
the,
imagine a different kind of,
it
yeah.
really is. I don't want to give the impression to anybody that like I'm bitter or unhappy about this. I love this job. I love the people I work with, and I love making movies every day. It's great. Even like I love going to work and helping artists make art. But like I mean, a lot of this is just, yeah. I mean, like one of the things that like we do is like it becomes so mundane, and I think that is in a sense how we forget, for lack of a better word, because you don't freak out. You don't like have a moment where like the enormity of what you're dealing with is crashes down on you. It's just
That's
another
your
day at the
reality.
office.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah.
I got a mug
Yeah.
of coffee next to that's my computer. You know, I'm ordering maybe $1 million of camera equipment. And I'm gonna spend more money than I'm ever gonna see personally. I really hope it shows up, but
You can always send it to my office, by the way.
that's
I'll
fair.
take good
Yeah.
care of it. Um, so, you know, you and I are in a similar boat. So Broken Interstellar came out in 2025 in September.
Hmm.
I have a book that just came out in March, and there's the challenge of writing the book. First of all, it's a challenge of having the desire, I would say
Yeah.
the manufacturer need to do it yourself,
Yeah.
then to go and do it. But then it's a whole other profession to get people to actually read it.
Yeah.
So how has that been going? What you've been doing? What are you hoping people will do? And what keeps you going?
Well, I'm going to answer that in reverse order. What keeps me going is I remember being a little kid and going to the library and grabbing random science fiction and mystery novels I'd never heard of and reading some of them, and I still think about some of them today. I don't think my book is the best book ever written. Maybe take that bit out, but I'm just what I'm going to say though is
Second, here we go. Second
second
best
book
book.
by Ascendance,
Here we go.
Ascendance by Don Schechter.
It's first, but it's okay. Close second.
It's no
We'll do a bundle deal.
Yeah, silver medal's fine. Yeah, but yeah, but it is an honest expression of something I would like to say. It is a story that I actually do quite like, and I would like the opportunity to share that with people. So that's what is keeping me going. Um, I would say that I'm finding it to be challenging, but I'm also, I mean, your big bottleneck is time, because like anything can be done with enough time or with enough money or some combination of the two. And you have to be, but because I imagine this is the same for you as well, our time and our resources to put into marketing and promotion is very limited. We have to be smart about it. And I think that a lot of that is just a lot of trial and error for me. I'm finding that arcs were not really worth the trouble. That's where you put it up on a website and somebody does an advanced review back and forth. It's a long book. And I think that's a lot to ask for somebody to like sit down and read it just out of a sense of obligation. A big thing I'm trying to do, and why I'm very excited to be on this podcast and trying to get on podcasts at all, is just try to spread it around a little bit, because I don't know where my niche might be, and I don't have a very immediately clear idea. I mean, if you have something that is a paranormal romance set in Scotland in the Highlands in the 17th century, yeah, there's only 200 people who want to read that, but they're all going to want to read it. So, so if you're like, so a big part of this,
I'm always complaining that I'm like, well, my book's not like a pirate romantasy. You know, it's not like there's no ice hockey, there's no
yeah,
love triangle, there's no pirates. It's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's something too, is you have to be, I think a lot of patience is something that I've been employing a lot of. I mean, I just have to remind myself, like, no one knows it's out there. I have to go one person at a time, one podcast at a time, one article at a
Yeah.
time. Get yourself into try to get myself into conversations with people I think might be interested. And then also be patient. I mean, it takes a while to read a novel. It takes a while to read a novel. It takes a while to think of something to say on a review if you intend to review it. It takes a while for people to find the time and the energy to do that. And I mean, this book took a long time to write. It's going to take a long time to sell. I'm going to work on some other stuff in the meantime. Wrote another book
Well,
with I wrote another book with a friend of mine last year. It should be coming out later this year. I've got a couple of other drafts that are in the very early stages, but this is, I think, managing my own expectations is part of it. But the other side of it is also just, I think it's good. And I think that's what kind of gets me out keeps me going more than anything else. There was a story I remember hearing about Stan Lee and this kid. I got this from R.K. Mulholland, who was a webcomic artist, but he was saying that Stan Lee was at a comic book convention. This kid comes up and asks, like, "Hey, how does he feel about working on She-Hulk? Because it was like one of the worst comic books I ever read." And Stan Lee was like, "Kid, you have to be a fan of your own work because there's a good chance no one else is going to be." And that's kind of what I'm trying to hold on to. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's good. I think people will get something out of it. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed people reading it. I enjoyed people responding to it. So, if that means I've got to send it out for free to 10,000 people, if that means I've got to pay it, like, if that means it's going to be
Well,
priced
I
at
would say
$1, yeah,
good, exactly, good for you
yeah,
because, I'm the greedy one. I got my sentence for 1995 still out there. But no, tell us like how people can get your book
absolutely.
because it's not expensive.
It's not expensive, no. So this is the $1 Space Odyssey. I think 2/4 Dune is about, pardon me, 3/4 Dune size. So just give you a sense of scale there.
Good reference.
Yeah, it is. So the easiest way to get a hold of it is to go to www.liambegley, LIAMBEGLEY.ca. All the stores are there. Links to Goodreads are there. Links to my socials if you want to follow me on Blue Sky and see me complain about the mayor of Vancouver, like a lot more than is probably appropriate. Um, then further to that, we also have, if you want to just go to Amazon or Smashwords and search for Broken Interstellar, it'll always be up there. I've tried to put it on as many stores as I can. It is on Itch, I think, as well, although I understand Itch is a little bit more for video games than anything else, but it's still there. It is priced at $1 in whatever local denomination you have, because that is the lowest I can possibly price it without making it free. It also is free very often. So, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't believe in digital rights management for electronic books. I think that overall it is unnecessary gatekeeping. I don't know exactly how we as an industry are going to sort that out, but I know
Right.
that handing the keys over to one corporation to run it for Adobe to run everything is probably not my ideal solution. So there is no DRM. If you buy this book and you like it and you know a friend will enjoy it, send it to them. Please write a review. Please have your friend write a review. Even if it's just, yeah, it's good.
And their mother.
And their mother, maybe read it or don't.
That's what I would say. I say throw a review up. Even if you don't even like it, don't read it.
Yeah,
Just put a
just
review
review
up.
it. It was probably fine. I don't know. It makes good paperweight. But yeah, the the other thing is, if you cannot swing $1, if you for whatever reason you cannot get out of your PayPal account or your credit card or anything like that, message me on Blue Sky. I will probably just send you a copy. This is not, right now I want to put this in front of as many people as possible. I just want people to read it. I want to know what people think about it. I want to be part of the conversation that is the global literary canon of science fiction. And that's what we're looking for here.
I love it. It's beautiful. It makes me feel like a gritty American
Well,
capitalist here.
you
But
went for paper printing, man. That's the thing. I can see the copies. You have overhead. I
I
might
think
do a
my
print run.
ego is the overhead. Great. That's gonna make the reel, and I'm sure that's the only thing that Trevor's gonna remember from this whole thing. Um, well, I'll send you a copy. There we go.
Right back. Yeah, send you
Uh,
copy. Yeah.
yeah. So Liam Begley, thank you so much for joining us, and so thanks for joining, and you're welcome that Trevor's not here because it's been much more pleasant without him.
Thank you so much. This has been a blast. Thank you so much for seeing me and for bringing me on. I really liked it. It was a great chat. Always happy to talk to a fellow sci-fi fan, Deep Space Nine fan, film crew worker, filmmaker, or sci-fi author. And now I got to talk to all five at once. That's fantastic.
We have all the titles between us. That's it for this away mission. Thanks to our guest and to all of you for watching and listening. Please subscribe on all the platforms, and you can email us at nowin-scenariopodcast@gmail.com. Trevor will return, I promise you. But in the meantime, I think we're thriving just fine without his supervision and snark. See you next time.